for everybody, so why don't you spread them around? Yeah. Anyway, like some of you, because I recognize a few faces that I've known for many years, I woke up on the 2nd of May a little shell-shocked. Shell-shocked because the party that we know and love went from election to election to election, where we're finally at, I think, a crossroads. And the crossroads are that we're either going to survive and grow, or we're going to die. And one of the things that we need to do, and then Mr. Harper gave that famous speech, the first ever Prime Minister in the history of Canada who said his stated objective was to destroy the Liberal Party. And that was an unbelievably anti-democratic speech, because it should be the role of the Prime Minister to celebrate all political parties. And he spent $20 million of your money trashing 2 of our leaders, and we know he's going to be doing it to the next leader, and we better be ready. Because if there's one thing he is, it's a very brilliant tactician, and we know that if he says that it's his objective to destroy the Liberal Party, we have to be there to make sure that it doesn't happen. So that's why I decided to put my name forward to help reorganize the party from the grassroots up. First thing that we need to do, if we're going to be successful in convincing Canadians to support democracy, we need to have democracy in our own party. And that means no more appointments. No more leaderships without a proper race. We need to have a very open leadership, and I would dare say that not only an open leadership, we need to have internet voting, and we need to open the doors wide to the Liberal Party, so that in the next leadership in 2 years we could have 50,000 people voting from across the country, and do it in a progressive vote that will take place province by province by province. Organizationally, we need to understand that there are 3 objectives that we need to embrace to rebuild the party. First, morale. This has to be a fun place to be. And we, frankly, as Liberals, have spent an awful lot of energy fighting amongst ourselves, which has not actually yielded too much political success. Because while we're shooting ourselves in the foot by fighting with each other, Mr. Harper and his gang are just running rampant all over the country. Second, membership. We have to look at anything through the lens of, is this going to attract new members? It's not about servicing the members who are there, but for heaven's sakes, once you join the party, do you even get a welcome wagon? Do you have something on the website to show what the Liberal Party is in multiple languages, for example? There are some very basic tools of communication that if we were a franchise, the Liberal Party would have been put out of business. Because we expect now at the local level, not only do you have to bake the donuts, you have to deliver the donuts, you have to write the advertising copy for the donuts, and you have to communicate the donuts, and you have to sell the donuts. Well, your job is to sell the donuts and grow the client base, so that this week if you're selling 10 donuts, next week you're selling 20 donuts, the 3rd week you're selling 40 donuts, and the next week you're selling 80 donuts. That's the only way we're going to win, is by multiplying the membership, where every single person in this room brings 10 friends, and then those 10 friends bring 10 more friends, and those friends bring 10 friends. And our job as a party has got to be to equip you to be out there doing retail politics. For example, every year we know that on the 8th of June, it's Earth Day. It hasn't changed from one year to the next. The Liberals have always had a strong environmental policy. What do we do to equip the local riding presidents and candidates to do retail politics on Earth Day? Just last week was the 75th anniversary of the CBC. And Mr. Harper's thank you to the CBC for 75 years was to basically issue a subpoena to a parliamentary committee to try and extract information that he can't get through access to information. Happy birthday, CBC. The Liberals knew that the CBC 75th birthday was coming 2 months ago. Why not have a drop-down toolkit on the national website that says, we would like you to organize a meeting with the Friends of the CBC in your riding. Here's what you need. This is the history of the CBC, this is the press release, this is the toolkit, the bilingual press release, and you can bring people together in the community center who aren't just Liberals, but who are Liberal-minded people. So we try and grow the Liberal base by reaching out to people who maybe haven't thought about the Liberals, but we draw them in on an issue. So, membership. The third is money. A $10 donation is a lot more valuable than a $1,000 donation. Because a $10 donation, and somebody who agrees to spend $10 per month on the Liberal Party, which actually costs them $2.50, which is a cup of coffee at Starbucks and maybe 2 at Tim Hortons. The bottom line is, for $2.50 a month, you have somebody who's going to vote Liberal. If you have a Laurier Club member, you may have somebody who's going to be a very devoted Liberal, and you may also have a business person who wants to have a business agenda. So our focus, in order to grow the base, needs to be on growing the $10 monthly memberships. And I will guarantee you that if I'm successful in becoming the president of our party, we will actually have 4 visits per year in every single riding across the country of a national figure who can help you raise money, build memberships, and increase morale. I've already spoken to Paul Martin, Jean Chrétien, Stéphane Zion, Michael Ignatieff, and John Turner, actually. And they're all willing to give us time. I'm asking them for 10 days, 5 in the spring, 5 in the fall, that we will organize their trips, and they will do 15 ridings in 5 days. 1 breakfast, 1 lunch, 1 dinner, and we'll set them loose, and we'll focus first on the weakest ridings in the country. The 1/3 of the ridings in Canada where we did not get our deposit. We have 4 years, and as we inch closer to the election, we're going to focus more on the most winnable ridings. In the beginning, we need to work on the ridings that have not had a Liberal member for years. Now, I ran first in a riding that had not been Liberal since 1934. So I know from whence I speak when it comes to organizing. And guess what? There's no magic bullet. Yes, there's new technologies, and yes, you can reach out through Twitter, and I'd like to tweet our meeting tonight. But the bottom line is it's people-to-people hard work and identifying people in those communities. Just on a quick overview of this group here today, I'm assuming that in this riding you have probably 15 different language groups as a minimum. If you want to win the election, you need to have a 15-person multicultural committee with the leaders of every one of those communities. When I was successful in Hamilton East, I had a 26-person multicultural committee, and before computers, we delivered a multilingual letter to every single person in the riding that was hand-delivered by the presidents of the various community groups. And I met with them on a monthly basis to grow the base. So that can be done. Now with computers, we can even do it more effectively. Right now, the Tories have frozen family reunification, which is a huge issue for some communities. So we start with a roundtable on family reunification. And we bring in the former immigration minister, Sergio Marchi, to talk about it. Because one of the issues that we face is we need to bring in past members and senators to help the work of supplementing what is done by members of parliament. Members of parliament are always under a time gun, and they have debates in Ottawa, and they can't come for a week to do a tour. I mean, they may be able to do it in between, and they're actually planning to do a 4th quadrant of sort of a 4th phalanx in between when the House doesn't sit. But we have literally hundreds of Liberals who have not been called upon to help the party in our hour of need. And I'll give you one small example. I was campaigning in Manitoba a couple of weeks ago, and I bumped into Otto Lang. He started the Wheat Board. What better time to let Otto Lang loose in Manitoba and Saskatchewan and Alberta than right now, going into the ridings where they're burning up because of what the Tories have done, and no political party is taking up the truncheon, partly because they're off busy in Ottawa. And if you don't have a member of parliament of your stripe, you got to make sure that you deputize the members who are there, the candidates who are there, the presidents who are there, and also other key people to come in and help you with that message. So that's membership, morale, and money. We also need to engage best practices. The different ridings, all the ridings in the Calgary area need to do more working together. Because if you have 7 ridings and you have an event or an activity, there is strength in numbers, and you can grow the party. Doesn't mean you can't do individual events, but you also need to if you do, for example, a roundtable on immigration, the best impact roundtable is probably if you can get 300 people to come. And to do that, you need to collaborate amongst ridings to make it happen. So those are some of my ideas. I think we would I would like to see, and I think I'm giving myself until July 1st to make it happen, I'd like to see a multilingual drop-down on the Liberal website, so that if you want to know about family reunification, you can actually go on and you can find out in Urdu, in Punjabi, in Tagalog, in different languages, what the issue is, framed in a nice one-pager that you can then draw down and use in various communities. And I think that's very doable. We may not be able to translate everything that we have, but we can certainly translate on an issue-by-issue basis to communities that need to be able to read it in their own languages as well. And so the first thing I'd like to do is do a fairly in-depth survey to go out to riding presidents to find out, and do it quarterly, what can we do to make your job easier? How can we facilitate? In Ontario, they have a conference call every Sunday night with the leader's office and with the caucus and with the party to find out what's going on and to get the heads up on what's going to be in the news the following week. And you can dial in, similar to what we did with Bob just last week on that dial-in thing. That technology is available to us. We should be using that on a regular basis. And the party itself needs to realize that our key job is not figuring out how to stop people from voting, but rather opening the party so that we get to register more delegates, more voters, more participants in the political process. And I think with that, I think we can actually do it in 4 years. I'm not one of those who thinks this is a long process. Jack Layton went viral in 2 weeks in Quebec. He went from nowhere to official opposition in the space of 2 weeks, which tells me that if we plant the seeds properly right now on an organizational level in every riding in the country, we can be positioned to win. But that means moving away from a party structure right now, which is command and control, to a party empowerment structure. And that means freeing you up to sell those donuts, because you're going to need to sell an awful lot of donuts to get to where we want to be in the next election. And I think we can do it, but we might get a little fat in the process. So I'd be very happy to take questions if people have questions. Yes?
Yes, we have to grow the party, there's no doubt about that. The one thing I haven't seen with this Occupy situation that's happening across the country is, we were just talking about it earlier, why doesn't the Liberal Party step in, get in there and give them a direction? There's 99% right there that would want a huge leadership to take them somewhere, listen to them besides at election time, and let's have the balls to do it. And have our open tables right there in the squares where they're at. Stand behind them. Nobody's got the guts to do that right now. I think we should get it.
We got the guts in Calgary East.
Calgary, wow, we got the guts in Calgary. We talked about that. But it's right there. You want new members? There's 99% of the country right there.
Well,
we want to turn the country around? Let's do it.
I think strategically speaking, there's a reason that they're out there, because they're expressing what a lot of people think is a problem in society, which is the increasing gap between the rich and ordinary citizens.
That's part of it.
But I also think that if you want to reach organizers, you have to know your community. And because somebody gathers in a central place to occupy does not necessarily mean they're actually going to be doers.
Let's make them doers.
No, we have lots of doers here.
Yeah, I know.
We have doers right now in community groups, and one of the first things that I did when I was first elected was I made a list of every single major organization in my riding, including all the church leaders and religious leaders of every faith, from mosques to gurdwaras to churches to temples, and also Kinsman, Rotary, etc., and I made it my business to go and meet every one of them for a cup of coffee to say, I'm thinking of running, what do you think? That's where your leadership comes from at the local level. And if you can reach out to one leader in the community, they bring 100 people with them. So in order for you to get 10,000 people, you need to meet with 100 leaders. And you can do the job of helping connect with those leaders. Not to disrespect anything that's going on in Occupy, but some of the occupiers just want to occupy.
Yeah. Sure enough,
so that's where we need to sort of mobilize. And one of the things that the young people right now actually at the BC convention are looking at is issues around which people get engaged. We need to put new issues in the window and give people the feeling that the Liberal Party is a vehicle for change, not a club. We've been a private club for the last few years,
Mhm.
and we need to be a movement, and in that sense, we need to mimic what's happening with Occupy Calgary and Vancouver and everything else. But I really think you need to identify the local leaders in various communities who are actually out doing positive things. Yes?
You have the former Liberal Prime Ministers involved or committed. Do you have any former Liberal ministers, not Prime Ministers, also involved or are going to be getting
I've
involved?
spoken to every single Prime Minister, and they have all agreed to support a plan to actually engage them post facto. In terms of ministers, I have many of them involved. I'll just give you an example. Last night I had a fundraiser at Herb Dollywell's house, and Herb's already said that he would be willing to travel to the whole of Alberta and British Columbia to deal with the issue of this freeze on family reunification. And he knows a lot of people in a lot of ridings. Lloyd Axworthy's supporting me. Herb Gray's supporting me. John Manley's supporting me. Mr. Kretschant's supporting me. The other leaders, other than Mr. Kretschant, all the past leaders I've spoken to, and they all say that they wish to remain neutral because of their position as a past leader, which I fully respect, and I've said both to Paul and to the other leaders. What I hope is if I'm successful after the election, can I count on you to help in the rebuilding process? And they have all said yes. I mean, Turner's traveled, but a riding association can't pay to bring Mr. Turner in because it costs you $2,000 just to bring somebody in. So if the party does it, well, let's say we bring John Turner in and we set him up in 15 ridings across Alberta in the summer, and we organize his travel, and we pay for his hotel, and we bring him in. If 15 ridings are doing it, it makes a lot more sense than if it's one, it's costing you $2,000 to $3,000, so you have to make at least $6,000 to make it worth your while, which is onerous for a riding that has never done anything. So what ends up happening is you end up feeding the good ridings, because the good ridings that are already organized are the only ones that can organize to bring somebody in. So they get stronger, and then the other ridings that are weak don't get anybody, and nobody talks about them, and then you end up with 6 people on an executive meeting and an AGM once a year, and they get discouraged. None of it's true. So part of what I'm hoping to do with this travel program and speakers program is to say to every riding, in Lethbridge, you're going to get 4 people a year, and they may be Otto Lang. Maybe it won't be Paul Martin. It might be Otto Lang. It might be somebody targeted to an issue that you're particularly interested in, environmental sustainability or women's issues or whatever. You know, it's like Lucy Pépin, who's retired from the Senate now. She's willing to travel. She started the first Status of Women in Canada. Sharon Carstairs, one of the first women premiers, and everybody knew Sharon when she was there. And since she left, nobody's asked her to do anything. She's written a book on women in politics. Ione Campagnolo. When I left the party, they didn't even have my phone number. Like, I actually worked on campaigns. I worked on every single campaign for candidates since I left being an MP. But when you call the Liberal Party offices, they referred you to the Association of Former Parliamentarians to get a hold of me. It's because they did not have my phone number, even though I worked in every campaign for different people that asked me. So somebody would call me and I try and arrange it on a local basis, but they didn't mobilize people like me to say, oh, can you come in and help? And I've spoken to so many people who are quite interested in helping, and particularly at this time, which is kind of an interest, like it's a critical juncture. How many of you are going to go to the convention?
Well, assuming.
Yeah.
Assuming all happens. One question. I like what you were saying about breaking down some of the dysfunction within the party and the command and control structure, and it's something that speaks very strongly to me, particularly right here in Alberta. How do you propose to do that? We have some interesting, I grew up in Ontario, actually right next door to you in Burlington, so yeah, I've watched the commercials, yeah, my mom's a fan. Anyway, one of the things that really struck me as different when I moved to Alberta was this whole connection with the Alberta Provincial Association for Liberals, and I was like, well, no, it's a federal thing, it's a provincial thing, and those ties get very confused and it's very messy. So how do you propose, and I think it happens in a couple other places, how do you propose to break those pieces down and to eliminate those appointments and non-essential roles that facilitate that command and control structure?
The party is strongest when the federal and provincial wings work together. And you can look across the country to see where the party's gone down the tubes. And they've gone down the tubes in provinces that keep insisting that federal is one thing and provincial is another, so they don't work together. And they eventually get smaller and smaller and smaller. It was just in Manitoba. 6 federal Liberal MPs in the middle of an election put out a letter, ex-MPs, put out a letter asking people to vote NDP in that election, right when John Girard was trying to hang on, and we had the chance of picking up a couple of extra seats, but because of this, it was just like somebody kicked him in the gut 4 days before the election. And when that happened, so his seat was survived, but when we had a chance to grow, we didn't grow. And ditto for Saskatchewan. There are so many federal Liberals in Saskatchewan who voted for Brad Wall and actually left the provincial guy kind of hanging out. And eventually we have 1 seat federally and 0 seats provincially. So it has not been a winning strategy. So I think, and I'm actually meeting with the provincial leader tonight, later on, I think part of our strategy's got to be, like in Ontario, we've got the exact same ridings. So the provincial guys put together a pretty good template. They were 11 points behind at the beginning of the election and they won. They know how to organize. We need to learn from them. They have some great tools, like they do communications way better, they do targeted voting, they know how to get through into the micro-targeting and the subsets of populations that we need to identify and reach out to. So I think we need to learn from them, and we also need to reach out, because we aren't that many, like in Alberta, for example. Let's work together, not separately.
Although we are many, I think a lot just won't sell. It's like, you know, it's taking your donut example, you'd actually have to grow the wheat as well. We are actually quite many out here, but we're quiet and probably a little shy to self-identify.
Well, and understandably too, because you've been in a province that hasn't been Liberal for years, and it's become a dirty word to be a Liberal. And we have not done a very good job defending. So I'll use the example of the wheat board, okay? The Tories are on the run on the wheat board. They're still talking in Alberta about the NEP, okay? And that happened in 1981. They've been dining off for years. We need to create the same kind of momentum for the discussion of the wheat board. Can we turn it around? Well, I don't know what's going to happen with the court case, and it may well be that we can't, but we got to keep repeating it. We had the damn referendum of the farmers, and see how much the Tories care about the farmers that they will not even respect a referendum. You know, a proper referendum.
I'm just going to interrupt here. I know that you're on a tight schedule tonight, so maybe we'll take one more question.
Okay. We have a lot of people out here that have moved from out east. And how do we get them who would normally identify as a Liberal out east to try just to get them to vote here? What are we not doing? What do you think we should do? And start working towards that, because I want a Liberal from Calgary East.
Well, I think you go back to basics. First of all, what is the demographic makeup of Calgary East? How many polls do you have right now?
We have 56 polls.
Oh, federally?
Oh, that's me. Sorry.
You're gonna start dancing again?
Yeah, I know. That was my alarm.
56
polls?
polls? You must have more than 56 federal polls.
Yeah.
You know, it's like 300 polls.
It's like 39. But
So let's take a look, first of all, at what Statistics Canada tells you about the makeup of the riding. And then take a look at the makeup of the riding and find out, is that reflective of your association? Where is your multicultural committee? If you don't have a multicultural committee, you will not win the next election. So the first thing you need is to start going out to where the people are, and don't ask them to join the Liberal Party. Start by asking them, what are your issues and how can I help you achieve your objectives? So that means, for example, if we do a roundtable on family reunification, then give them an opportunity to speak on behalf of their communities and their leadership and grow in common cause around an issue. If you look at Obama's strategy, Obama did, the other thing is, don't drown them out. If you become a member, the first thing you should have is a package from the Liberal Party welcoming you, because what you end up getting is 20 emails to give you money. You know, Obama did 9 policy asks before he ever asked anybody for money. And I'm running for the presidency of the Liberal Party. I do not have access to the membership list of the Liberal Party. I cannot contact you. because the party will only give us the list of the delegates once they're elected. Now, if you're supposed to be the membership and we're supposed to be voting in a delegate selection meeting, I should have a chance to contact you by email. And I was told that they want to keep the line of communication open so that they can do money asks. And then people take their name off the email list because they get tired of being asked for money. So part of it's structural on our part, and we got to fix that. Part of it is also you drilling down to, okay, I don't know if you're starting them already, but you need to have weekly coffee parties starting now, okay? And you take the riding, if it's 300 polls, you identify, if you have, how many people do you have in the room here right now?
25.
25. Okay, 25 of you. Let's say there are 250 polls. Will you each take 10 polls and find me 5 people in those polls? And we meet next month, and those 5 people, you find one of those 5 people who will have a coffee party, and you have 2 coffee parties every Wednesday night. One at 6 to 7:30, and one at 8 to 9:30. And you have issues-driven coffee parties, and you put out flyers to say, in this neighborhood, this is the issue that I'm concerned about. Come and talk to your local president or your local candidate on this issue. And then what you do is once you identify those leaders in the community who will host a coffee party, they're also your future, you are the future area captains, and the poll captains are the ones who are actually going to win you the election. So they are the same people that when you go to the election, you say, look, will you knock on 2 streets in your neighborhood? Like ideally, a proper machine should have a minimum of 500 volunteers that will actually be prepared to work on election day. So that sounds like a lot, but the bottom line is you're 25 people here. That means only do you each have 20 friends. Okay? But you have to get those 20 friends in, and that's why you need to organize activities, not all of which are big money. We used to do 1 free activity a year. It was membership renewal, and you were asked to contribute like to membership renewal. I never had an event in my riding over $100. And I always have lots of money in the bank. Because guess what? If you get 600 people at $100, that's $60,000, okay? And you start with a few events that you keep repeating, so every year, and you make them fun. I mean, how many of you would you like to, we did a thing for Stéphane Dion last month where we went to the racetrack. Now, it costs you $20 to go to the racetrack. You don't have to rent a hall, you don't have to pay for booze, you don't have to commit anything other than your $20. And we sold, I mean, they sold a whole bunch of tickets, but let's say you do a racetrack event. Let's say you get 50 people at the racetrack event, and you charge $50. So the party gets $30. 30 times 50, that's what? $800 right there in the kitty for a racetrack event. No, more than that, it's 8,000, isn't it?
6,000.
No. Anyway, it's
30 times 50 sounds like 1,500. Yeah.
30 times
50.
Yeah, okay, 30 times 50, you're right, $1,500. So you end up with $1,500 in the bank, but the other thing is you had a fun event. And it's not politically heavy. People are going out, they're spending time together, they're getting to know each other. We used to have bowling. We used to do bowling, and we get sponsorships. And you get people to sponsor you per lane. You know, like let's say you'd make $20 or something on your sponsorship, and you pitch it into the party. And you have a few fun events. Yes, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, well, I understand what you're saying, and I think I agree with the recruitment process that you're trying to start. But has the Liberal Party identified why we're in the situation that we're in now? Because this was the biggest party in this country for many, many years. So has there been a very serious evaluation by the general membership about why it is in the situation that it's in now?
Well, you tell me, because you're the membership.
Well, no, but
Have you guys had it? Have you had a postmortem? Have you had a postmortem?
Yes, yeah, we have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that we're where we're at, in part, because we shut the door on Liberals, and we told people that either they were no longer welcome in the party or they were not welcome in the party. And secondly, we allowed Mr. Harper to spend $20 million defining 2 leaders without saying a damn thing. So both Stéphane Zion and Michael Ignatieff went into the last 2 elections with their hands tied behind their backs. And that was one of the dumbest things we could have done. But at the time, some persons in the party, and they kind of, we can't afford to spend it. But guess what? It's like a business. If you don't advertise in between elections, if the other guy's spending $10 million to tell people how bad you are, you better find some money and you better reach out and do a Liberal Defence Fund. And we need to start now putting money aside for that Liberal Defence Fund. So I think it's partly our self-inflicted and partly by being non-responsive to the trashing that we took, paid by the taxpayers, because they got a tax credit of $15 million to do all that stuff. So it's kind of a combination of all of the above.
Thank you very much, everybody, for your questions. And Sheila, I wish that we could